does indeed.
6:52 the time.
A new minimum wage has come into force this month. The hourly rate is going from £6.31 to £6.50.
Might sound like good news, but the reality is rather more complicated. If you care for a friend or relative and also work part-time, the increase could cost you more than £60 a week.
Let's talk to Paul Lewis to find out more about this. Paul, good morning.
Hello, Megan.
Doesn't sound fair, does it?
Well, it certainly isn't fair. This is about carer's allowance. This is a benefit you get if you look after somebody for 35 hours a week. They've got to be very disabled. It's £61.35 a week, which you get. Now, in order to get that, you have to work. You can't earn more than a certain amount, and that amount is £102 a week. So if you earn more than £102 a week, you lose your £61.35. Now, under the old minimum wage, if you work 16 hours, you will get £101 a week. So you could combine working 16 hours a week and get carer's allowance. The new minimum wage, which went up last week, gives you £104 a week for working 16 hours, and that just takes you above the £102 threshold. So, for an extra £3 a week on your wages, you could lose a benefit of £61 a week.
Well, there are a couple of solutions, maybe, to this. You could work less, which I imagine people wouldn't want to do. Or the threshold. Why doesn't it make sense to just raise the threshold?
Well, let's come on to the threshold in a minute. The problem with working fewer than 16 hours is that if you work 16 hours, that can entitle you to another benefit, working tax credit. If you're a single parent and in some other circumstances, you can get working tax credit on 16 hours a week. Now, that's worth rather more than carer's allowance, about £75 a week for these people. So they have to work 16 hours. So if they cut their hours to 15 to bring them under the carer's allowance threshold, they're working too few hours to get working tax credit. So it's Hobson's choice. You have to give up one benefit or the other, just because the minimum wage has gone up. And you can't even say to your employer, oh, why don't you pay me a bit less? Because, of course, that would be illegal.
Well, you said at the start it is complicated, Paul. I mean,
it gets worse, Charlie, actually.
So what's the government say?
Well, this is dealt with by 3 departments, which doesn't really bode well, does it? HMRC, Department of Work and Pensions, and now the Deputy Prime Minister's office. And what they say is, well, it's a bit more complicated than that. If you lose your carer's allowance, your working tax credit will go up, which may be true, but it will only go up a bit, and because this is an annual benefit worked out annually, whereas carers is worked out weekly, it may not even do that. So they don't really have an answer, I'm afraid. Carers UK says all this complexity, which you rightly identify, just puts carers off trying to get a bit more money by doing part-time work. And don't forget, the caring they do is completely unpaid.
Paul, thank you very much.
Still to come on Breakfast this morning.